Are you stuck on a hamster wheel, putting in the work, putting in the effort? Are you stuck putting in hours and hours of your time so that you can finally get to your goals and finally be able to start enjoying your life? But no matter how much effort, how much work, how much time you put in, have you found that it can feel like you're still not making any headway? Like you are, as I said, on that hamster wheel, you know, putting in all the work, all the work, all the work, and just not getting there. That's part of what I'm going to talk about today. It's called the I'll be happy when trap. And it's one of the things that we do to ourselves, which actually limits ourselves and keeps us from achieving those very goals that you're striving to achieve. Bit of a catch 22, right? So, I'm going to talk with you today about why so many of us limit ourselves and hold us back from what we can accomplish and how you can change it. Because, look, do you ever feel that no matter where you turn, it just seems that there are more and more problems everywhere we look? We've all heard that line, right? Life is hard. And sometimes it feels like we're stuck in a cycle of problems and problems and problems with no end in sight. And especially now, with so much going on in the world, economically, socially, politically, environmentally, wars going on in parts of the world, and all of the fallout from that. Oh gosh, it can just be so easy to get caught up in negative thoughts, negative worries, and really stuck in a spiral into a funk. And that's not a place that any of us can create from. And it's certainly not a place from which we can actually help to make a difference in what's going on in the world. And it's very easy these days to start believing that this is just the way life is and that we're powerless to change anything. But what if that is just not true? What if life is supposed to be good? What if by finding ways to feel better about life, to finding ways even to be happy, regardless of what's going on in life, what if we can actually do that and thereby make a positive difference in the world as well? Would that be cool? Because it is possible. And I want to share with you today how you can do that. I almost called this session, What If Life is Supposed to Be Good? Because I believe that it is. And even better, I believe that when we lean in to creating a good life and to feeling good, no matter what is going on externally, that actually you can rise to the challenge of these times and show up in a way that not only helps you accomplish what you want in your life, but also helps you to turn the tide, helps you to have a positive impact in the world around you. So if you like the sound of that, then stay with me, because in this video, I'm going to share with you how we can break out of the energy of negativity and how we can focus on solutions instead of the problems. Why choosing happiness not only improves your life and improves your results in your business, which is very cool, but also better serves others as well. We often hold ourselves back from doing the things that help us to be happy now because we feel that it's selfish for us to be happy. The number of times I've caught myself thinking and heard other people saying things like, I feel really bad being happy when there's so much suffering in the world. And that is a belief that is very common. But actually, what if by looking after your own happiness, you are better able to spread more happiness in the world and reduce the amount of suffering? What if happiness is in fact a selfless act? So we'll explore that today. But anyway, first, before I dive right in, I would love to hear from you. So for all of you who are joining live, I'd love to know that you're there. So drop hashtag live. If you're watching the replay, drop a hashtag replay. But I'd love to know whereabouts in the world you're joining from, because it's always interesting to see where people are joining from. And we live in such a global community. It's very, very cool. So I'd love to hear from you. Drop below to let us know where you're joining in from as well. And, if you enjoy what I'm sharing today, give it a thumbs up, sprinkle it around the internet, let anyone else who who might be struggling in that hamster wheel of negativity or that hamster wheel of putting in the effort and not getting anywhere. If you know anyone in that situation, share the love. Um, I'm putting this content out to serve whoever needs it. So let's do that. And if you would like to have access to my notes so that you can refer back to them, just let me know that below as well, and I'll get you the access. Plus, I have something special for you. One of the ways that helps us to actually learn and retain information is by listening with a view to implementing. So I invite you to look for what are the nuggets, what are the light bulb moments, what are the ahas, what are the tips that you think, oh, I really want to play with that in my life and try implementing it. When you have one of those, drop a hashtag nugget below and let us know what it is. And when you do that, firstly, that's going to help you retain more and actually get more value out of this. But also, I am going to do a draw of everyone who puts in a nugget. And the more nuggets, the more entries. In 24 hours, I'm going to do a draw and I have something special to share with the winner. So there you go. It's a win-win situation. All right. Before we dive right in case we haven't yet met, I'm Anna McKinlay. I help mums who run their own businesses to leverage your time and your mind so that you can tap into your full potential, so that you can meet and exceed your goals in less time and without sacrificing your health, your relationships, or your sanity. And I'm really focused on that so that you can create a life you love and start loving your life now. Because when you do that, everything else comes so much more easily with so much more flow, and it impacts on the rest of the world as well. Doesn't that sound good to you? So I offer this support to people through online content like this content here, through courses, through coaching, and so on. So that's what I'm all about. That's why I'm doing this. Shall we dive right in? Because I've got lots of juicy stuff I'm very excited to share with you. So let's talk about why you are limiting yourself and how you can change it. And before getting in the details, I just want to invite you to take a moment and be kind to yourself, because almost nobody on the planet is really living anywhere close to their full potential. We are all limiting ourselves to some extent, and there's reasons why. And it's not your fault. It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you, right? All it means is that we are playing by our factory default settings. And you get to change that so that you can up level and so that you can start thriving instead of just surviving. So let's dive right in. Now, just before, I will just a quick reminder that if you would like to receive my notes, because I'm covering a lot of material, drop notes below, give me that word, and I'll get you access to the show notes. And again, welcome to everyone who's here live. Drop hashtag live to let us know, and let us know where you're joining from. I'm diving in right now and focusing on the answer to the question, why are we limiting ourselves and how do we change it? So first up, point number one is I used the words before about our default factory setting. The default factory setting of a human brain is a bias towards the negative. And that does not serve us at all. There's a very good reason why we have this bias. And here are some ways that it shows up, right? Do you find that you are anxious about the future? Do you find your mind going to things that might go wrong? Even, playing out the worst case scenario of things that might happen in 5 minutes, later today, tomorrow, next week, next month, in 6 months or a year's time, right? Things that the chances are never going to happen, and yet we play them in our brain and become anxious. We worry. Do you find yourself worrying or beating yourself up about things that have happened in the past? Oh, why did I do that? I should have done it this way. And our mind goes over and over and over. You might have had a fantastic day. Just about everything went right. You showed up, you did great stuff. There was that one thing that if you could do it again, you'd have done it differently. And you notice your mind just keeps going back to that one thing, replaying it, going over all the ways. Oh my goodness, if I could only do it again, this is what I'd change. There's a reason why your brain does that, but it's not a pleasant experience, right? Our brains default to focusing disproportionately on the negative. And if our brains hadn't evolved to do that, we never would have made it this far. Because that focus on the negative, the looking for things to be anxious about the future, the replaying the things that we wish we'd done differently in the past, that is what kept our ancestors alive hundreds of thousands, even millions of years ago, because they were living in a world where they might not make it to the end of the day. And so our brains evolved to keep us at that level of survival, to make us super aware, hypersensitive to all of the risks and the things that could get us killed in the course of a normal day, right? And that is why our brains have such a strong propensity to go to the negative. It's your brain and your nervous system trying to protect you. Because in the old days, it was about keeping you alive for long enough that you could have kids and make sure they were old enough to be able to survive on their own, right? That was your brain's main purpose. Fortunately, we've got well beyond that now. We are in a world and in a place where, for most of us, surviving through to the end of the day is not a challenge for us, right? We've got to a different place, and thank goodness for that. So we do not need that function of our brain anymore, but the evolution of our brain has not yet caught up with it. And so that's what's going on when we have this anxiety, when we have this worry, when we beat ourselves up, when we have negative rumination where we just keep thinking on and on and on about the worst possible thing that could happen. That is simply an old, prehistoric, and yes, obsolete function of our brains trying to keep us alive. And it no longer helps you. But it does have a really big impact on our life because, and here's how extensive it is, right? For the average person, around 70% of the thoughts you have every day are in that negative space, 70%-ish, right? And studies have shown that the average person has around 40,000 thoughts a day, even more for some, right? So if we do the math, the average person has at least 28,000 negative thoughts every day, right? Does it matter? Absolutely it matters. And that brings me to the second point. So first point is we have this bias towards negativity. It's our brain's default setting. You can change it. I'm going to teach you how, right? You can absolutely change it. Why does it matter? Well, because you've probably heard this as a meme or as a cool quote. Our thoughts create our reality. What we focus on expands, right? I'm sure you've seen that plastered around the internet. And we look at it and we go, oh, yes, lovely motivational quote. But here's the thing I really want to emphasize today. It is a fact. It is a fact that the thoughts that you have, every thought that you have, even the thought that might be running through your mind right now about, my goodness, what's my next task? Or what are we going to have for dinner? Whatever those thoughts are, they are creating your reality. There's no getting around that. Let me just briefly go through the process because this is absolute science fact. And if there is one thing that you take out of everything I cover today, I hope it will be being super conscious of the importance of your thoughts and so that you can start catching them and really taking ownership because your thoughts are the place where you get to choose. Are you a victim of life, of external circumstances, or are you a creator of your own reality? And it's through being conscious and taking ownership of our thoughts and starting to get in and shift them and shift away from that default factory setting I talked about, that the moment you make the choice, the decision to start taking conscious control of your thinking is the moment you start to take control of your life and of everything you experience in life. Absolutely everything. Let me explain. And I'll be really quick, but it's helpful to have some meaning to put around this so that you can move beyond this notion of our thoughts creating our reality just being a nice quote and start actually really leveraging it. because this is where you can have massive power in your life. And this is why, if you are experiencing anything in your life that you don't want, it is a direct reflection of what is going on in between your ears and in your nervous system. So, our subconscious beliefs and thoughts, which translate into feelings, right? So, if you're experiencing things that you don't want, you can change it by changing your thoughts. And this is really comes down to neuroscience as much as anything. Every time you think a thought, neurons are firing in your brain, connections are forming in your brain. It's actually changing the architecture of your brain, which is pretty cool. And 40,000 thoughts a day, your brain is evolving all the time, right? The more we think a thought, the more we reinforce that connection, right? So it's like we're wearing a path until it becomes easier and easier and easier for your brain to follow. And then at some point, that path is going to become so well worn, it's going to become like the path of least resistance in your brain, the path that requires the least energy. It will become a new default pathway, right? That's what we call a belief, a thought that we've thought so many times that it has become our default and we no longer question it. And we start seeing evidence of it everywhere. Why? Because our beliefs and where we put our focus in our mind and with our emotions is part of the filter that our brain uses to shape our experience of the world. Every moment, right now, every second, you are receiving billions and billions of bits of data through your senses. Through what you see, through what you hear, through what you're smelling, through what you're tasting, through what you're touching. And most of that is filtered by your brain because there's too much data for us to be able to comprehend consciously. We consciously are aware of only a tiny bit of all this information that's coming in. So your brain decides what to show your conscious mind, partly by reference to your beliefs and understandings about how the world works, your expectations, where you're putting your focus. Have you ever had that experience where you're thinking about buying a car and you do your research and you pick a particular make and model of car that you think you'd like, and then suddenly you see them on the road everywhere? It happens with cars, it happens with outfits, it happens with all sorts of things, right? It's not that they just weren't on the road before or that no one was wearing that outfit before. It's simply that you are now focused on it. And so your brain is showing you information associated with what we're focused on. This is called confirmation bias. What we consciously perceive through our senses, sight, what we see, what we hear, and so on, is confirmation of our beliefs because our brain uses our beliefs as a filter. Our beliefs, our expectations, our focus. So if we're seeing and experiencing things consciously that we don't like, it's telling us that there is somewhere in our beliefs and our expectations, we are believing that to be true, we're expecting it to be true. So you can shift your experience of reality by changing those things. I know that sounds probably a little bit complicated, but the baseline is what we experience through our senses is shaped by what we expect and believe. If we want to change our experience of life, we've got to change our beliefs and expectations, right? That's the bottom line. So, and that's why what we focus on expands, okay? It doesn't just apply to outfits and cars and things like that. It also applies to more fundamental things. If we just feel like there are problems everywhere and we keep telling ourselves, oh my goodness, the world is going to hell in a handbasket, there's so many problems, I'm surrounded by challenges, life is hard, life is difficult, our brain will keep showing us the evidence of that and will hold back the evidence of every other possibility. If we believe that the only way to be successful in my business is to put in the effort and the work and do the hours, then your brain will give you that. It will get you stuck in busy work where you put in a lot of time and you go, oh my goodness, what do I have to show for it? You will not see the possible shortcuts or the possible opportunities to do things in less time because your brain is not showing you that stuff, right? And so on. So what we expect is what we get in our experience of life. All right. And I'd love it if any of this is making, if this is making sense, drop a comment and let me know. So That is the importance of our thoughts. Our thoughts shape our reality. End of story. Everything you experience is telling you what you are believing, what you are expecting, what you're focusing on. And the good news is you can shift that. But first, and there's one last point here actually, which is that how we show up in the world, how we speak, the decisions that we make, how we act when we don't take action, what causes us to not take action. 95% of all of those decisions, at least 95%, I should say, for some people it's more than 95%, is driven by our subconscious beliefs, the stuff we're not consciously aware of. And that's what causes us, or drives most of how we show up every day. And of course, how we show up every day drives our results. So again, our results are a function of those beliefs. If I believe that I just hate public speaking, then I'm going to be lousy at public speaking. And I'll say, see, I knew I was lousy at public speaking. And I reinforce the belief and it becomes truer and truer and truer. Right. So what's the solution? Well, actually, the solution is be happy, which I know sounds really corny. And I'm not, there's a little bit more to it than that. But happiness, most of us have been taught to be happy. We've got to put in the effort. We've got to be successful. We've got to get the stuff. We've got to achieve the goal. And then we can be happy. I'm telling you right now, that's not true. And that's not just based on it's based on research is what I want to say. There's a whole science around the science of happiness and what does it mean and what's its role. And that has shown conclusively that actually when we are happy in a state of psychological and emotional well-being, in a positive mindset, in a positive mood, we are smarter, we are more successful, and we accomplish more, we are healthier, and the list goes on. And yet, for most of us, we're still stuck in this belief that I've got to be happy when. And I'm going to share with that was me. About 10 years ago, a friend said to me, oh, you'd really love this book, The Happiness Advantage. You should read it. And I was like, oh, yeah. And I put it on my list. I even put it on my Kindle. And I didn't read it. Why? Because I was like, no. I will have time for all that stuff when I achieve my goals. I don't have time for that kind of thing now. And also the part of me that was like, I have to put in the effort and I have to put in the struggle. I have to do the hard yards to be successful. That part of me said, happiness advantage. That's not real work. And so I talked myself out of it. And guess what? The years went by. I was putting in the effort. I was putting in the struggle. I was doing all the hard work. I kept banging up against the glass ceiling and I just could not get to my goals. And then I found this book again and I read it and I was like, duh. Finally, I read this several years ago because I had been stuck in the I'll be happy when trap. We get stuck in the gap. We have been taught that we have to get the stuff, achieve the goal, have the money, whatever it is, the external stuff in order to be happy. So we focus on getting the external stuff. And guess what? Has that ever brought you lasting happiness? And the answer for most people will be no. And the reason is when we focus on achieving an outcome, on achieving a goal, we put in a lot of effort. And while we're putting in all of that effort, we are what I call stuck in the gap. We can't be happy yet because we don't have the goal yet. So we're working and putting an effort out of a place where we're not accessing our full capacity because we're not in a positive mental state and mindset. And so we're struggling away. And then even if we achieve the goal in that handicapped state, there's two things that usually happen. One is we achieve the goal, we tick it off, we go, and we revert back to our old selves. And we end up back where we started or even further behind because we've undermined our belief in ourselves. Even if we stay at the goal, for people who stay at the goal, what's the next thing we do? We go, yeah, I got the goal. Right, what's next? And we set a new goal. And so there we are back in the gap. I'll be happy when I achieve the next goal, but I can't be happy yet because I haven't got there yet. So we spend most of our time in the state of, are we there yet? Are we there yet? I'm not allowed to be happy yet because I don't have that thing, right? I don't have that success, that promotion, that business goal, that amount of money, whatever it is, that time. And even worse, we go, because I haven't achieved the goal yet, I can't take the time for myself. And so we let our self-care go, let our relationships go and things like that. It's a catch 22 trap that we get stuck in. And this is what happens when we make our happiness conditional on factors that are external, on achieving outcomes. All right. We never get there, and we never actually allow ourselves to be consistently in a state of being happy. And the irony of that is that, as it turns out, success doesn't create happiness. External stuff does not create happiness. And you don't have to look very far at all to find plenty of examples of that when you think about it, right? What the science of happiness has now clearly demonstrated is that it is that state of happiness that fuels and creates our success, right? Happiness is the driver. When we are in a state of having a positive mindset, of having a positive mood, we are smarter, we are more motivated, we are more successful, we're more resilient, we're better able to tap into the full capacity of our mind because we are in a state of solution and creativity rather than being in a state of striving and surviving, right? And so we are better able to innovate and to find creative solutions. And gosh, doesn't the world need more people who are able to innovate and find creative solutions now? So making the world a happier place is part of the solution for the world. But also, when we're operating out of that state, because of the impact on our body chemistry, you're going to find that you are not only more resilient to stress, but you're also healthier, your immune system works better, you're living longer. Wouldn't you like some of that? So if we focus on creating the happiness first, the success is going to come faster, right? So let's turn it around. How do we turn it around? How do we stop limiting ourselves and create more happiness so that you can create more of what you want in life? So the first thing is to recognize that our external circumstances are not the primary cause of our happiness. It's mostly an internal thing. External circumstances predict only about 10% of our total happiness. And that's from research by Sonia Lyubomirsky. I'm not sure if I've pronounced her name correctly, but that's out of that book I mentioned, The Happiness Advantage. She summed it up by saying, it's in our power to fashion happiness for ourselves, right? And so if you want to be happy, decide. I am going to take responsibility for creating my own happiness. I am going to own my internal state. And I'm going to share some tips with you now to help you do that. But before I do, I just want to be really clear about what we're talking about, because happiness is a word that's used a lot to mean different things. And what I'm talking about here is not just, oh, put on some rose-tinted glasses, toxic positivity, yada, yada, yada. No, that's not going to work either. There's more to it than that. And that hedonistic happiness of just do what feels good, whether it's popping the pills or having the glass of wine or whatever, we know that doesn't work either, right? And actually, in the longer run, that kind of thing leaves us feeling more depleted. So what are we talking about happiness? Happiness, it's more a fuller concept of well-being psychologically for our mind and our emotions. It's about feeling good, feeling more feelings that feel good. And that could mean that feeling of the satisfaction of having a meaningful impact in the world, even if it's hard, because it gives us that sense of purpose, of meaning, of fulfillment. It could be the satisfaction, that sense of accomplishment that you get when you accomplish something, when you tick something off, especially when you go a little bit outside your comfort zone, you rise to the challenge and you still get it done, right? Or you show up to the best of your capacity in the moment. That satisfaction of knowing that you gave it your best shot. That feeling of being so immersed in a task that you actually lose the sense of yourself or a sense of time because you're just completely focused on the task for its own sake. That feeling of being just completely deeply engaged, right? The feeling of being connected with other human beings, right? That sense of being with someone and having a sense of connection. And yes, positive thoughts and a positive mood are also part of that package. But there are a number of different elements. And according to Martin Seligman, who's one of the fathers, if you like, of positive psychology. Each of these things lift our sense of psychological well-being. So positive thoughts, that sense of engagement, having connection and relationships, good relationships with others, having a sense of accomplishment and having that sense of meaning. You don't necessarily have to have all five. Any one of those is going to help you lean in more to that fulfillment, that psychological well-being. And that's what I'm referring to when I'm talking about happiness. So how do we create more of that? Right. Here are 6 things. Here's the nuggets. Here's the tips. Here's the how to implement. All right. So first one is detach from the negative thoughts. I've shared with you where negative thoughts come from. It's an out of date, obsolete evolutionary mechanism in your brain that is trying to keep you safe. That's trying to protect you from dangers that, quite frankly, no longer exist in your life. Right? For most of us. And the bottom line there is those negative thoughts are not you. Well, if you think about it, they can't be. You're the one hearing them, so you can't be the one saying them, right? It is simply a network in your brain. Just sounds like us sometimes because it's hijacking that part of our brain and speaking with our voice. And not everyone experiences negative thoughts as words. You might experience negative thoughts in a different way. Regardless, they are not you. They're a prehistoric part of your brain and of your nervous system that is trying to protect you. That's it. So, yes, notice them. When we push against something and try to bury it or to fight it or to push it away, we're focusing on it. And remember, focusing makes it expand. So just let that go. Notice them, acknowledge them, recognize that they're not you, and let those slide. And if you can stay detached and keep yourself from feeding or reinforcing those negative thoughts, just stay detached and just notice them, even play with being curious about them, those negative thoughts are going to dissipate in a couple of minutes. That's it. So detach from negative thoughts. And if you're stuck in a cycle of negativity right now, that's the place to start, right? But once we're in that place of, I'm detaching from the negative thoughts, your next step is, guess what? Start focusing on positive thoughts. Start feeding your brain stuff that's positive and that is aligned with what you want in life, with who you want to be and how you choose to feel. Choose to practice positive thoughts. And there's a whole lot of different ways we can do that. Affirmations, mantras, practicing gratitude, practicing appreciation, noticing what are the good things that are happening in the world. And yes, there are good things. The sun came up today. You have air to breathe. You may even live in a scenario where you turn on a tap and water comes out. You flick a switch and there's light and there's heat. You may even have other good things in your life. If we use our imagination, we can find a lot to appreciate. So those are all ways that we can feed positive thoughts into our mind. And remember, what you focus on expands. Every time you focus on a positive thought or actively look for something positive, you are wiring your brain and changing the architecture of your brain to be more positive. And at some point, there will be a tipping point, and that is going to start to be your new default, right? Because every time you practice a thought, that connection is getting stronger. So that's number 2. Number 3, detach from outcomes. We want to get out of that I'll be happy when trap, because that is not serving you. All right. And the thing there is to detach from the outcomes. Wouldn't it be nice if I had that? And yes, absolutely set goals, but we want to be detached from achieving them, which I know sounds really weird, but instead we want to focus on purely the satisfaction of each little baby step that moves us towards the goal. So it's not about achieving the goal. We're not hanging our self-worth or our happiness on having that outcome. We're using it more as the direction that sets our GPS. And we're using it to help us focus in our present moment on what is our next logical step. And we are doing that step, which is sometimes doing nothing, by the way. It can be doing nothing. It can be an actual task or activity. But whatever it is, we are doing it with our full focus and doing that step for its own sake. And when we do that, and the tinier the baby step, the better, because then you get more of this, Each time you complete a task for its own sake, just acknowledging the satisfaction and the sense of accomplishment from taking one more baby step to being the person you want to be. That sense of accomplishment feeds our sense of psychological well-being, our happiness, and it creates a beautiful momentum so that you are becoming more that kind of person who is more engaged and has a greater sense of accomplishment. And speaking of engagement, this is tip number 4. Focus on your strengths. Identify what are your unique strengths, and you do have a unique combination of strengths and skills and experience that no one else on the planet has. What are your core strengths? What are your skills that you love to utilize? Notice those and start using them. When you give yourself a challenge or a task or an activity that allows you to use your unique strengths and skills fully, it's going to help you to create that state of engagement, that feeling of being fully immersed in what you're doing. And that again feeds back to our sense of self and to our sense of accomplishment and to our sense of self worth and confidence and all of these good things. Plus, just that state of engagement is really lovely for our sense of well-being. So that's tip number 4, use your strengths. Tip number 5, connect with a sense of meaning. This is a lot of people talk about find your why, find your why. Well, this is why. Having a sense of meaning and being able to connect those little things that we do each day with a sense of meaning, the impact that we want to create or have in the world, whatever that is, even whether it's through being a great parent, whether it's through our business, whether it's through being the kind of person that uplifts others, whether it's through actually modeling for other people how to prioritize self-care, whatever that impact is, being able to connect the small things that you're doing each day or not doing, as the case may be, with that sense of meaning. Because finding that connection helps us to stay motivated. It gives us a greater sense of fulfillment and it boosts our sense of well-being. And when we have that sense of meaning, that's what helps us to be motivated and to be consistent and to see it through when we have things on our plate that feel challenging, that are outside our comfort zone, that are hard, that might be uncomfortable or even a little bit painful for us. When we have that meaning behind it, we're motivated to do it. And then when we do it, it creates evidence that we are the kind of person who can see it through. All right. So that can be super, super powerful. And my 6th tip for you is connect with other people. Us humans, we thrive on real connection with other human beings. This is why COVID has been so, so difficult for so many people, is that ideally our minds, our brains, our nervous systems crave in-person connection with other human beings. So finding some way, even if we can't connect in person, the next best thing is other kinds of connection, like we're connecting right now, right? But making time to connect with the people in your life that are important to you. And when I say connection, I mean being present without distraction so that you can actually have a solid mutual relationship. Connection has been found to be actually the most powerful thing that we can do to boost our success, to boost our health, even to boost our financial success, to boost our longevity, and of course our happiness. So that is your number one thing. Connection with other humans is going to boost your happiness. So this all helps you to be happier. But why is it so important? Prioritizing your own happiness not only helps you to have a better life, but also helps create a better world for other people. As I've talked about, a lot of us feel that putting our own happiness first, putting our own self-care first, putting our own things first is selfish because we should be serving others first. And we've all heard that saying, fill your cup first so that you can serve from a full cup, etc., etc. Well, that is actually true. That is part of it. How can we help others to be happy if we're not in that state ourselves, right? But there's a lot more to it than that. Have you ever noticed that when, some people, all they need to do is walk in the room and the whole energy of the room shifts? It can be that really negative person that walks in the door and it's just like everyone's like, ooh, yeah, they've had a bad day. Let's stay on the other side of the room from that person. We don't want to be that person, do we? No, no, we don't. The person who emanates kind of stress and heavy energy. And then there's the person who walks in the door and you kind of have a ripple through everyone in the room who goes, oh, something's shifted here. You can feel the energy. That is the person who is tapped into prioritizing their well-being, their sense of happiness, their sense of positivity, their engagement, their meaning, their connection with other people, their sense of accomplishment, those things. They're the person who's prioritizing their happiness. This is something that has been called emotional contagion. Our emotions can be contagious to others. So, what kind of impact do you want to have on the people around you? Right? There is also another impact that what we do models the possibility for others. So when others see you thriving, see you succeeding in your business, see you having more energy, see you accomplishing more in less time and doing all this working smart and not harder and things, and they're going, wow, what is she doing? Right? To have this result. And you're showing them that it's actually you're putting your happiness and your self-care first. You are modeling that so that you are actually giving them the permission to believe that they can do it themselves. And you're showing them that it is a possibility and it is okay. Right. So that creates a beautiful rippling effect as well through the people in your life, through the people you're connecting with in person, online, through your business, through your personal relationships, whatever. So, you're basically being a good example for the rest of the world, right? And helping others to see that there is another way, that they don't have to be in that striving, struggle place of hardship and negativity, that they can turn it around. But also, when you are in that state, yes, not only is your cup full so that you can serve, but you're actually showing up as a version of you who is more fully tapped in to all of the potential that you have. You have huge potential that you're probably not even aware exists because it's below our conscious awareness. Potential to tap into solutions. When we're out of that survival state and we're in a state of thriving, we're less defensive. We're less fearful. We're less likely to be stuck in procrastination. We're less likely to be stuck in negative stress. And when we're out of negative stress and we're into eustress, into positive stress, into living in a place of challenge, of thriving, of accomplishment, and all of those things, motivation, and so on, then we are able to tap more into the full creative potential of our mind. Our mind gets into a state where it's more coherent, can get into a state where it's more coherent, and we're more fully able to tap into the possibilities, the belief, the solutions, the creativity, the innovation. And so we can see and make connections that we wouldn't be able to see if we were in that place of being stuck in negativity. So we're able to contribute more. We're able to tap more into that place of solution. We're less us and them and separation and more open to collaboration and to co-creation and being innovative. And that creates a ripple effect as well. And most importantly, I feel for where we're at in the world right now, is it creates the possibility for others to get into that space as well, so that more and more of us can move into a space of being collaborative, of working together, of co-creating, of being innovative, of finding creative solutions to the problems that are facing us at an individual, family, community, national, and yes, global level, because we are facing some real challenges right now as a human collective. And wouldn't it be great if we could bring more resources to bear to find the creative solutions that we need to get beyond that, right? You prioritizing your own happiness and your own well-being is the starting point. So I know that sounds really woo-woo, but I can map it all out for you. It all does make a difference. Every single one of us has the capacity to make a little bit of a difference, to be the pebble that becomes part of that avalanche that can help us to shift from where we're at into, yes, a better world for everybody. So I've covered a lot. I'm just going to do a quick recap, and then I'm going to ask you to choose, what do you want to implement out of what I've shared? So, because I have covered a lot, and just a reminder, I know I've got a little comment up there, but Drop notes if you'd like my notes, if you'd like access to my notes, because I have covered a lot. So, quick recap time. I'm just going to summarize what we've talked about. So, first up, many, many people are stuck in a place of struggle, of being on that hamster wheel of life is hard. I have to put in the work, the effort, the time in order to achieve my goals so that I can finally be happy, and stuck in that place that it feels that everywhere I look, there are more and more problems in my life, in my community, as a nation, as a planet, right? Global crises everywhere we turn. And that doesn't serve us. So, why is it that we're keeping ourselves limited, that we're keeping ourselves stuck? Well, the first thing is the default bias of our brains. Our brains are biased towards negativity. It's our factory default setting. It is part of what helped us evolve and survive long enough to get to where we are now. It's no longer useful. But what it does do is it means that most of us have a bias towards negative thoughts, approximately twice as many negative thoughts as positive ones. And why does that matter? The second point, your thoughts create your reality. What you focus on expands. It's not just a meme or a motivational quote, it's a fact. Every single thought we have is actually creating, determining how we experience the world. Because when we repeat thoughts, they become wired into our brain, they become our brain's default setting, new default setting. They become a belief. And that becomes part of the filter that our brain uses to decide, of all the billions of bits of data coming in through your senses every single second, what tiny bit is your brain going to show your conscious mind? We experience what is called confirmation bias. Your brain shows you only the stuff that comes in that aligns with your expectations, your focus, and your beliefs. So, if what you are experiencing in the world includes things that you don't want, that is a reflection to you that there is something in what you're expecting, believing, and focusing on that is aligned with stuff you don't want. If you want to change that pattern, the only way you can do it sustainably is by going to the source and changing your expectations, your focus, your beliefs. All right? So that's this point number 2. Number 1, we're biased towards negativity. That is our factory default setting. You can change it. Our thoughts create our reality. Everything we consciously experience has been shaped and filtered by our beliefs, our focus, our expectations. What we focus on expands. Point number 3, happiness makes you more successful, not the other way around. Only about 10% of our experience of happiness, this is research based, only about 10% is at all related to our experience of external stuff. Most of our happiness is an internal story. There's this thing called the happiness advantage, after the book by its name, which is that research has now shown us that when we're happy, we are smarter, we're more motivated, we're more successful. Success does not create happiness. It is happiness that creates more success. And it also creates more health, more creativity, more longevity, right? So if you want a good life, focus on enjoying a good life now. How do we do that? Point number 4, we can create more happiness. We have that power, the power to fashion happiness for ourselves. And here I'm not just talking about feel good in the moment, put on rose-tinted glasses happiness, just reiterating, it's more about psychological well-being. Yes, having the positive mindset and positive thoughts, absolutely, but also allowing ourselves to become engaged in what we do for its own sake, connecting with other human beings, investing in our relationships so that we have that sense of connection and that sense of community and belonging, allowing ourselves a sense of accomplishment, of rising to a challenge and accomplishing it. That doesn't necessarily feel happy in the warm and fuzzy sense, but it feels really, really good and can create an amazing sense of momentum in our lives, that satisfaction of accomplishment. And attaching meaning to what we're doing, having connection between all of the little things that we do day to day and actually some impact that we create that's meaningful for us personally to create in the world. Having that meaning. Now, you don't have to have all five of those. Any one of those five things is going to boost your level of psychological well-being. And that's what I'm talking about here. And so, how do we do that? Well, it's about focusing on those five things. But first one, we detach from negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are not you. They're simply an outdated prehistoric part of your brain and your nervous system trying to protect you from getting killed before the day ends. It's not, you're no longer living in that world. But the key thing is to recognize that your thoughts are not you, and being able to detach from that and just let them slide. Be able, if you can stay detached for even just a couple of minutes without engaging in a negative thought, it's going to dissipate. And the same goes for negative emotions as well. If we don't feed them, it's going to dissipate. And then that brings us to the next step, which is focusing on positive thoughts, positive affirmations, mantras, practicing appreciation, practicing gratitude, any of those things. You get to choose what you think. It's your brain. You can insert any thought you want. Choose ones that lift you up. Number 3 tip, detach from outcomes. Yes, set goals, absolutely, but only so that you can work out, we're like using them as a destination, but we're not hanging our self-worth or our happiness on, I'll be happy when I get that goal. That is going to actually make it take longer to get to the goal. Detach from the goal, allow yourself to be happy and engaged in the now, and focus on the satisfaction and accomplishment simply of doing each little baby step for its own sake, of staying present in that now and in that sense of accomplishment. And guess what? You'll actually achieve the goals so much more faster by detaching from them than you would if you'd stayed attached and I've got to get the goal. It's one of the ironies of life, right? So that's number 3. Number 4 is use your strengths. Focus on identifying and connecting with your unique personal strengths and the skills that you have that feel good to use, and use those strengths and skills. Be creative about it. Use them in doing the things that you do day to day, because that is going to help you tap into that place of engagement, of flow. When we're doing things that are just have a challenge level that's just slightly beyond our existing skill level, and we can really tap into and leverage our strengths to achieve it, that's when we really get into a state of flow, and that feels really good, and it empowers you and creates a greater sense of personal empowerment as well, or can do. Connecting with other people is the next thing. Connect with others. Connection with other human beings is really vital for us, and is actually the number one thing that underpins our ability to thrive and be successful. And connecting with a sense of meaning. All right. So I'll just go through those 6 tips again. Detach from negative thoughts. Focus on positive thoughts. Detach from outcomes, and instead of focus on each task for its own sake. Use your strengths and your skills so that you can get into that state of engagement. Connect with a sense of meaning, of impact, even when you're doing tiny things. If you know they're contributing in some way to a greater purpose, to an impact, to something that gives you a sense of meaning, that's going to boost your motivation, and it's going to boost your sense of fulfillment and well-being as well, and connecting with other people. All right. And just to wrap up, my last point, remember, with prioritizing your own happiness is not selfish. In fact, it's probably the most selfless thing that you can do, because when we prioritize our own happiness, it helps create a better world for others. You are showing up in a far more powerful way and able to tap into your resources, your creativity, your ability to innovate. But you're also creating an emotional contagion effect, because how we feel affects the people around us. And when we feel good, that actually has a more positive effect as well. So that is a gift for other people. But beyond that, you're also showing people what's possible and giving them a permission slip by being, if you like, a role model, that you can be happy, prioritize your own self-care first, and be more successful by doing it, which gives a great big permission slip to the people around you as well. And it gets us out of survival and into thriving, so that we're able to accomplish more and Be more open to collaborate, to co-create, and to find innovative solutions. And isn't that what we need in the world right now? So there you go. That's a quick recap. I would love to know what you have most gained. So, question for you to reflect on: what do you choose to take and implement out of what I've shared? Have a play with it. Drop hashtag nugget below to let me know what your takeaways are. I'd love to know that. So drop hashtag nugget, and in 24 hours, what I'm going to do is look at all of those comments with nuggets, and I'm going to do a prize draw. And what I am going to share is I have a program. Usually it's 47 US dollars for this program. And thanks to those who've just joined us as well. Great to see you there. Right, great to see you there. I'm just wrapping up, so watch this for the replay as well. What I would love is your takeaways, your nuggets. Drop them below. Let me know what they are. In 24 hours, I'm doing a draw, and I'm going to give away my self-employment blueprint course, which focuses on, for anyone who's self-employed, what are the 4 questions that most self-employed entrepreneurs never ask themselves that are absolutely vital if you want to create a business that actually creates the lifestyle and the outcomes that you want, that's aligned with who you are, with your values, and with the life that you want to create for yourself. So that's usually 47 US dollars. I'm giving it away to whoever wins the nugget draw. So be sure to rewatch. I will also be posting a short recap version if you just want to get the juicy bits. So watch out for that. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm going to wrap up there. I love sharing this stuff as much as anything, because not only have I applied it in my own life, but I have shared this with so many clients over the years. Even if you take just some of what I shared today and you implement it and you integrate it into your life is going to change for the better. And it's going to affect the people around you as well. So you get to live in that win-win space. So have some fun with it. Thank you again for joining me. Anna McKinlay, helping mums who own their own businesses to be able to go from survival to thriving, so that you can meet and exceed your goals without sacrificing your health, your relationships, and your sanity. In fact, while nourishing them, right? So that you can start loving your life now. Thanks again. I will be back same time next week. And I have received an inspiration to actually share with you the key steps to actually creating the life that you want, to manifesting the goals that are most important to you. There are some key steps that if you follow them, you're going to tap into your intuition and to the full capacity of your mind, so that you can create more synchronicities and get what you want with more ease and more quickly. So if you like the sound of that, join me next week. I will be posting a reminder, and I will see you then. You have a fantastic rest of your day, and